ومن الناس من يقول آمنا بالله وباليوم الآخر وما هم بمؤمنين يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا ولهم عذاب أليم بما كانوا يكذبون وإذا قيل لهم لا تفسدوا في الأرض قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون ألا إنهم هم المفسدون ولكن لا يشعرون.
Subhanallah. What is the technique that Shaitan uses in his attack against the believers? I want you guys to remember that the war against Shaitan will end. Even when your soul is being pulled from your throat, Shaitan and his awliya, his army, will try to attack you on your deathbed. They will try to do everything to get you to denounce Allah or Islam. So the war against Shaitan and his jinn, will continue even at death. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the battle against the believer. How does Shaitan and his awliya fight against us? This is what we're going to focus on today. Okay? And we have to understand as Muslims, guys, that Shaitan uses many deceptive ways to destroy the believer. And one of the many different ways that Shaitan attempts to destroy us is what many of you may be suffering from right now. What many of your friends may be suffering from right now, especially those sisters who are on MySpace. Many of the Muslim sisters right now have lost the battle. They have fallen as victims to Shaitan. And this is the means that he used. He makes the evil look good to you. He makes the evil look good. This is the technique that Shaitan used against Adam. And he won the battle. What Shaitan does is he makes the false appear in the form of truth. And he makes what is true appear like falsehood. He will always try to make humans love and be attracted to that which is false. And he will make you dislike the truth until you are pushed to doing evil deeds and turning away from the truth. And we see it all the time. Look at some of the sisters on MySpace. They came to this website. They couldn't handle the truth. They couldn't handle the truth that they cannot commit zina. They couldn't handle the truth that it is haram in Islam. It is unlawful in Islam for people to have paramours or love affairs. It is haram in Islam for women to sit on the internet falling in love with men and having relationships with men, playing house with men. This is haram. Those sisters couldn't take the truth. They couldn't handle it. This is how Shaitan dupes them. As Shaitan himself said to Allah, he said in the interpretation of the meaning, "My Lord, because you have sent me astray, I verily shall adorn the path of error for them in the earth. and I shall mislead every one of them, except those of them who are devoted to you. So Shaitan makes what is evil look good, and he makes you dislike the truth. He makes what will harm you look so good to you that you will imagine it to be beneficial for you. There are so many Muslim women on the internet living in a fantasy world created by Shaitan. They think they're in love with these men on the internet, men that they did not meet in the lawful way. These women, many of them have no walis, no guardian. And the Prophet said you can never marry. A woman cannot marry any man without a wali, a guardian. These women meet these men off the internet. These men have never talked to their guardians. And they form relationships with them and give you false promises of marriage and all of this. They play on your emotions. And you begin to imagine that what you're doing is beneficial. You begin to really believe that it is beneficial for you to use the internet to find love. Shaitan will bewitch your mind until he makes it follow different desires and different opinions. Shaitan will lead you to action after action until you are eventually destroyed. It starts off as chatting on the net. Now it turns into love on the net. Now you end up fornicating. You end up cybering and all this other filth that so many women do. This is the strategy of Shaitan. And again, this is what he did to Adam. He made the falsehood look so beautiful to Adam that Adam went and ate from that tree even though Allah told him not to. And this is what Shaitan does to us. He makes us attracted to that which is bad for us, that which is false, and makes it look beautiful. And Allah mentions this in the Quran. Allah tells us in the interpretation, the meaning, we verily sent messengers unto the nations before you, but the devils made their deeds fair seeming to them. Shaitan has so many sisters thinking that they're doing something good by putting up these pictures of these men that they're in love with. They even go so far as to take the pictures and put them together to make you think that they're husband and wife. Here he is in a picture sitting there with you when you've never even been with that man. But these women are so deluded. This is how Shaitan dupes us. That's one of the number one means of duping us. Another technique that Shaitan and his army use in their battle against the believer is, not only do they make the evil seem good, but they also give pleasing names to things that are forbidden. They give evil actions names that are good and pleasing as a means of enticing you. For example, when Shaitan enticed Adam alayhi salam, Allah told Adam to stay away from that tree. Shaitan went to Adam and told him that this is the tree of everlasting life. So Shaitan gives bad things good names as a means of trying to seduce you into his web. And Allah speaks about this in the Quran. Allah tells us in the interpretation of the meaning, but Shaitan whispered to him, saying, O Adam, shall I show you the tree of immortality and power? So this is how Shaitan dupes us. He gives good names, pleasing names to things that are bad. And Ibn Qayyim, may Allah be pleased with him, Ibn Qayyim, for those of you who don't know, he, in my opinion, was one of the best scholars of all times. He was a student of Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Qayyim once stated, he said, from Shaitan, his followers inherited this trait of using names that are loved by the soul for forbidden objects. For example, wine is called the mother of glee. Interest is called a business transaction. Taxes are called the rights of government. Dancing and music are called arts. Another example, having love affairs on the internet. This is called love. Fornicating with men on the internet, you call that love? Subhanallah. So this is one of the ways that Shaitan will dupe us. He will make us do bad things. But he gives these bad things good names. Fiancé. Look at this word, fiancé. So many of these women on MySpace, they claim to have fiancé. These men are paramours. Allah says in the Quran, do not take a woman as your paramour. Do not take a woman as your lover. Do not take a man as your lover. In Islam, we don't have lovers. We don't have fiancés. We get married. If a man is going to marry you, there is no courtship. There is no dating in Islam. If a man is going to marry you, he goes to your guardian. He asks for your hand from your guardian. And if your guardian agrees, then you talk for a short time and then you get married. There is no relationships, no engagements of a year, 2 years, and all this. Islam forbids a woman to talk alone or be alone with a man who is not a mahram to her. But these women call these men fiancés. This is how Shaitan dupes you. He'll give a good word to a bad action as a means of pulling you into his wicked web. And so many believers fall for that, especially on the internet. Another technique used in the battle against the believer, and this is something that many of my students suffer from, and many of you, especially the new sisters, the new students who have recently joined our website, whenever your iman increases, and whenever your knowledge of the religion increases, Shaitan will attack you by pushing you to go to the extremes. So this is another technique that he uses in his battle against the believer. Okay, he couldn't get you to fornicate. He couldn't get you to adulterate. He couldn't get you to get on MySpace and have love affairs. You're here at the website learning. So now he's going to get you through another means. He's going to push you to be an extremist. And how does he do this? He will make you think that your good deeds are not enough. He will make you think instead of making wudu, subhanallah, then maybe you should make a ghusl instead. Instead of just praying your salat one time, maybe you should do it again to make sure that you did it right. This is extremism. He will convince you that what you are doing is not sufficient. Shaitan's ambition is to make you go to the extreme to the point that you end up losing the blessing for that deed. Instead of washing your hands 1 time or 3 times, he's going to make you wash them 7 times. This is how Shaitan dupes many of us. He makes us extreme because Shaitan knows that Allah hates an extremist just as much as he hates a hypocrite. Because extremism makes whatever it touches ugly. And extremism will eventually destroy you. You cannot be a Muslim and be extreme in this religion, because eventually you will destroy yourself. And also you will turn other people away. You will make people think the religion is hard and ugly. So Shaitan makes you stray away from the straight path in the same way that he makes another person negligent. Again, Shaitan's intention is to keep you away from what is right. So we have to make sure that we balance our iman, that we balance ourselves, that we check to make sure that everything we do it the way Allah and His Messenger legislated, that we don't add to it, and that we don't take away from it. Otherwise, we'll fall in this trap of extremism. On the flip side of that, another technique that Shaitan uses is procrastination and laziness. If he can't make you extreme because he recognizes that your heart is lacking in faith, then he will push you to procrastinate and put things off until you become lazy. And this is why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that every time we go to sleep, Shaitan ties 3 knots at the back of our necks, and he breathes into them. He says, the night is long, so keep on sleeping. He will tell you this to make you put off waking up, so you end up missing Fajr. But if the person wakes up and says, Alhamdulillah, then one of the knots is unloosened. And if you make wudu, another knot is unloosened. And when you go to pray, all the knots are unloosened. And then you will feel so energetic and so happy in the morning. You will be able to accomplish so much if you wake up and make Fajr on time. But when you oversleep, you wake up groggy. You wake up listless because Shaitan has won the battle. He got you to become too lazy. He got you to procrastinate. So this is why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whenever you wake up from sleep, you should make wudu. And you should rinse your nose 3 times because Shaitan stays in the upper part of your nose during the night. Remember, each one of us, we have a personal jinn that is assigned to us. What happens when you go to sleep? When you go to sleep, your jinn goes into your nose, and he will stay inside your nose while you're sleeping. And he will try to encourage you to not wake up in time to pray. Remember, that jinn never leaves you until you die. So whenever you sleep, when you wake up, make wudu to blow your jinn out of your nose. And for the person who oversleeps the prayer, guess what? That is a man whom his personal jinn has urinated in his 2 ears. Okay? So when you don't wake up in time to pray, your personal jinn urinates in your ears. Okay? So try to wake up in time and blow him out of your nose. Another means of attack, another technique used by Shaitan in his battle against a believer is false promises and false hopes. And again, so many good Muslim women fall guilty of this and victim to this. Shaitan will make false promises, and he will give you sweet dreams just to mislead you. Those women sitting up on MySpace with all these men that they claim are their fiancés. These are false promises, sweet dreams. Shaitan will make you think, I'm going to marry him. Oh, I'm his fiancé. We're going to get married. We're going to get married. He's somebody good for me. Most times the people don't get married. And if you do get married, like Sheikh Jamali was saying, 98% of those relationships off the internet end up in divorce. Because Shaitan gave you sweet dreams that this man is the perfect man for you, that he's the best man on earth. And then if you do marry him, he ends up being a criminal, or he ends up being a pervert, or he ends up being someone who harms you. But you were deluded from this because you were a victim of Shaitan. You allowed Shaitan to dupe you with promises and false hope. Allah speaks about this in the Quran. Allah says in the interpretation of the meaning, Shaitan promises them, and he stirs up desires in them, and Shaitan promises them only to mislead them. How many women fall guilty and victim of this? Look on the internet, look on MySpace, and you will see hundreds of women who are caught up in this disease of false hope and false promises. You will find hundreds of Muslim women living a lie, living a fantasy that was woven for them by Shaitan, and they're too weak in their knowledge, too weak in their faith to break themselves free of it. Shaitan also promises the wealthy people among the unbelievers, that he'll make them even more rich, and he will give them possessions in the hereafter. He had a beautiful garden, and he thought that the last hour would never come. He was so caught up in his garden, so Allah destroyed his garden. And then he realized after his garden was destroyed that Shaitan had deceived him. We need to understand that human beings, we become so busy with sweet dreams concerning which there is no possibility of happening. And we become so caught up in these sweet dreams that we don't take part in what is beneficial and what is fruitful. So many sisters are sitting up on MySpace. They don't have the time to come here to learn, but they're sitting there right now messaging and talking to their lovers. You have no time to join this website to learn your religion, but you got all the time in the world to sit up on MySpace talking with these men. You have all the time in the world to indulge in these sweet dreams, of which the possibility of truthhood coming from them is very slim. So this is another means by which Shaitan uses to dupe the believers. False hopes and false promises. Also another means used is doubt. Shaitan will cast doubts in the person's mind. Say you do break a loose from the web of falsehood, and you do decide to join the website. Look what happens to so many. They come in here to learn, and Shaitan looks in their heart and sees that they're weak, so he then tries to put doubts in their minds. He puts doubt in your mind to mislead you from faith, to confuse you. And the Prophet warned us against these things. We have a beautiful hadith from Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ said, Shaitan comes to you and he will ask you, who created this? Who created that? Until you will even go so far as to ask, who created Allah? And asking questions like this can take you totally out of Islam. So for some of those sisters from MySpace who do break loose of the web of false delusion and do make it to the site, they don't last because Shaitan puts doubt in them. He'll cause them to question what they are learning here, to doubt that what I'm teaching is the truth. Let me give an example. The whole fitna about makeup, The whole fitna about makeup was based on truth. And some sisters, who did make it to the site, they allowed Shaitan to make them doubt what they learned here. That you cannot go around calling things haram without evidence. That we cannot go around saying it's haram to wear makeup when there is no evidence to support that. And that's the reality. But Shaitan put so much doubt in those sisters' minds that all that fitna emerged as a result of three women. Three women created all that fitna on MySpace because they were not strong enough to resist the battle of Shaitan when he wanted to fill them with doubt about the truth. And even the companions of the Prophet were not safe from these things. Some of them went to the Prophet once and complained about how they had false thoughts about things, how they were suffering from doubtful thoughts. And the Prophet ﷺ listened to them. One of the companions said, "O Prophet, we find in our mind great things that we cannot dare to talk about." And the Prophet asked them, "Does it really occur to you?" They said, "Yes." And the Prophet said, "This is the clear faith." And what he meant by that is, if you are able to reject those doubts, when you get these doubtful thoughts, if you are able to reject them and not respond to them, this is what makes you a true believer. Because Shaitan will always try to fill your mind with doubt and suspicion. You'll come here and learn the truth. You will learn, for example, so many sisters come here and so many brothers, and they learn, for example, that wiping over the face when you make dua is not part of Islam, that this is a bid'ah, this is an innovation. So many people, when they learn that, Shaitan will come and put doubt in them, make them want to question me. Show me more hadiths. Show me more dalil. Can you give me the dalil on this? Give me more dalil on that. This is because Shaitan has infused their minds with all this doubt. This is how he takes so many of us down. And Allah speaks about this in the Quran. Allah speaks about how we should always be on our guard against Shaitan and his doubt. Allah says, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن قَبْلِكَ مِن رَّسُولٍ وَلَا يَبِّي إِلَّا إِذَا تَمَنَّى أَلْقَى الشَّيْطَانُ فِي أَمْرِيَاتِهِ فَيَنسَخُ اللَّهُ مَا يُلْقِي الشَّيْطَانُ ثُمَّ يُحْكِمُ اللَّهُ آيَاتِهِ وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ حَكِيمٌ لِيَجْعَلَ مَا يَلْقِي الشَّيْطَانُ فِتْنَةً لِلَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِم مَّرَضٌ وَالْقَاسِيَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَإِنَّ الظَّالِمِينَ لَفِي شِقَاقٍ بَعِيدٍ وَلِيَعْلَمَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكَ فَيُؤْمِنُوا بِهِ فَتُخْبِتَ لَهُ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَهَادِي الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Hear what Allah is saying in the interpretation. The meaning is, never have we sent a messenger or a prophet before you. When he recited the message, Shaitan attempted to throw some falsehood into it. But Allah abolishes that which Shaitan proposes. Allah is the knower. Allah is the one who is wise, that he may make that which Shaitan proposes a temptation for those in whose hearts is a disease, and those whose hearts are hardened. Lo, the evildoers are in open schism, and that those who have been given knowledge may know that it is the truth from your Lord, so that they may believe therein, and their hearts may submit humbly unto him. Lo, Allah verily is guiding those who believe unto a right path. Subhanallah. Allah is telling us clearly here that every messenger, every prophet that he sent, when they would come with the truth, Shaitan would do everything to try to throw falsehood into the truth. But that Shaitan is only able to win those who are weak in their faith, those whose hearts have a disease. But for the true believers, when they hear the truth of Islam, when they hear the truth of Allah, they fall down to their knees and they submit. But those amongst mankind who are weak in their faith, they're the ones that fall victim to the falsehood, because they can't differentiate between the truth and what is false. So many people need to reflect upon these words. That's why you sisters are here, and those other sisters on MySpace are not here. You all came to the website at the same time during the month of Ramadan. Look how many of you stayed and how many did not stay. When you all came, you guys, you recognized the truth of what we were teaching here. Your hearts were open. And when you heard the truth, you said, Subhanallah. Oh Allah, I hear you. Oh Allah, I obey you. And you guys stayed. And you've been growing ever since in your knowledge and your faith. But your other friends who came with you, their hearts were hardened. They weren't open to the truth. They didn't want to know the truth. They're too weak to their sins. They were not ready to give up their love affairs. They were not ready to give up their sinful deeds. They were not ready to cover up. They didn't want to wear hijab. They don't want to wear hijabs. So their hearts were closed. And when you all left here, they allowed Shaitan to put falsehood in what I was teaching you. They allowed Shaitan to make them doubt my teachings here. And so now they're still on MySpace, still having their love affairs, and still not wearing their hijabs. And they're damning you for being here learning. They're boycotting me for teaching. They're slandering me for teaching the truth. This is how Shaitan works. This is how he did the prophets too, guys. When Prophet Noah came to the people to warn them, to rehearsing to them Islam, Shaitan made the people laugh at him. They called him all kind of bad names and made fun of him. The same with Jesus. The same with Moses. The same with the Prophet Muhammad. He spent 13 years calling the people to Tawheed. 13 years. They used to call him crazy. They called him a fanatic. They called him crazy. They called him harsh. They called him mean. They called him cruel. The same things that those sisters on MySpace do to me. So this is nothing new. Shaitan, he will always play upon the people, because each and every one of us, we have a jinn assigned to us, and he can look in your heart. If he sees that you are weak in your belief, he will make you fall victim to doubt, to suspicion, to making the evil appear good to you. But if he sees that your heart is strong, he will try to attack you through extremism. He will try to attack you through procrastination.